guys? Welcome back to Pure Evil MMA Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Evil Eddie, and I think this is a little weird to say. This is more than a little weird to say. When we have grandchildren, I want you to picture this right now. They're going to go into their second grade classroom, and they're going to stand up in front of their class, and the teacher's going to say, "So, Sophia, or Donnie Rocket the Third, or what is your grandfather's, history?" And they're gonna go, "Oh, he was born in the 1900s. His career started picking up in the 20s. Think of that. We're in the 20s right now, Donnie. We're in the 2020.
I know, man. It's crazy.
My great grandparents were over in Italy right now, so I'm the only second generation here in America. And to think back when I think about my great-grandparents growing up in the 20s, that's forever ago. So think about our grandchildren going through that same thing. Like, it's just crazy. Dude, we're here right now. And I remember where I was during the year 2000. What was it called? Y2K.
Yeah, me too. I was in South Carolina. Like, we were huddled in a trailer wondering if the world was coming to an end.
So when I look at our analytics on the podcast, there's a lot of younger viewers. So I just want you to paint the picture, and I'll paint the picture really quick of what it was like to witness the 2000 ball drop and now watching the 2020 ball drop, because I was in upper state New York. I was with my family. There are a bunch of hunters, upper state New York, obviously. And we made a time capsule, man. I would love to go back and dig that shit up. I think I put a Pokemon card in there because that was really big. Beanie
Dude,
Babies
it's
were big.
holographic. It's worth some money, man.
Dude, you want to hear something crazy? I went to Goodwill the other day, and I got a Beanie Baby for 36 cents. I looked it up, and it's part of the original first generation Beanie Babies, and it's going for $30,000.
Dude, kids used to kill each other and beat the hell out of each other for Pokemon cards. Like, no lie. There used to be, like, on the news, murders. Like, kids would get killed for their Pokemon cards. Like, no bullshit.
Now kids are getting killed over Instagram followers.
No shit.
But do you remember where you were? Like, how old were you?
Like, dude, like, we were, huh?
How old were you?
Let's see, what is this, 2020? So, 20 years ago, I was 13.
Wait, Donnie, how old are you? Because I was 10.
I'm 33. I just turned 33 in November. I'm old.
Okay, you said you were 13?
Yeah.
Donnie goes, "I'm old. I'm 33. I'm old."
I guess you're only as old as you feel.
Well, you know how I think of it? It's
Fuck,
like you're on level 3.3 of level 10 in your life. You're not old, bro.
I don't know about that, but...
Well, you think about it, you break it down. If you live up to 100, you're on level 3.3.
I'm fucked. I'm on level 6.6.
You got that wear and tear, bro. You got that Jose Aldo wear and tear on your body.
Maybe you're right, favorite wear and tear from the leg kicks. from the Aldo leg kicks.
So we got a lot to talk about on this episode. I just want to thank everybody that's tuning in right now. Before we start today's broadcast, I mean, we got a lot to go through. Obviously, there was 3 events that went down. We're not going to spend too much time on Rizin. I do want to discuss Bellator's main event, and Donnie did fill in tonight to do the results for PFL, and this was the first year I was... Hey, stop to Z. Hey, stop to Z. Throw a little lighter over there. Throw a little flint action. But this was actually the first year I didn't go to New York to cover PFL. When I first started, it was actually World Series of Fighting, and I saw Justin Gaethje, Marlon Moraes, and the third guy that got re-signed to the UFC. Oh my God, why can't I think of his name? David Branch. David Branch.
David Branch got slam KO'd back in the day by my boy Gerald Harris.
Oh,
and David Branch's first stint in the UFC.
And it was crazy, man, because Branch going back to the UFC, everyone was so excited. You got Justin Gaethje, you got Marlon, who was, Frankie Edgar's protege, which we'll talk about Frankie Edgar in a couple of minutes here with the Korean Zombie talk. But it's just sad, man, to see David Branch have so much potential and just kind of crumble under the pressure, which kind of wants me to segue into everyone discussing Michael Chandler. How would Michael Chandler do if he went into the UFC? Because we saw Eddie Alvarez go. He became champion, man. He was smart enough to use his wrestling skills throughout the entire run up to that title fight.
Yeah, I think he got. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not gonna say anything bad. I like Eddie Alvarez.
But Donnie, let me ask you this:
I'm team Iron Army, but yeah.
Is it too late for us to see what we wanted to see? It's almost similar to Fedor, but to an extent.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
levels
so.
down.
Yeah, I think so. Michael Chandler's 33 now, too. I think so. I think he signed with Bellator for the foreseeable future. So I think so.
Donnie, I found out what your problem is, bro.
What?
You're looking at these you're comparing your age to these fighters that have gone through the trenches.
Dude, 33 at 155 is no joke, man.
Well, what about?
He said he wants to fight 5 more years, so that'd be 38. And I think he signed. From the way he talked, he's made it sound like he was signed from through Bellator for the foreseeable future.
I remember when Chandler went on Rogan's podcast. I think it was about a year ago.
Yeah,
there was talk.
Talk about fighting Khabib and shit.
Right, there was talk. Like, I started getting pumped because this was around the same time that we started hinting towards Ben Askren to get signed, which was a tease.
Yeah, because Michael Chandler was going to test free agency, but then he ended up re-signing in his mind, or in his words, a lucrative deal with Bellator. I mean, he is Bellator's most successful fighter.
True.
He was tied with Patricio Pitbull for the most wins in Bellator history, but now with his win the other night at Bellator, and he passed him, I think, for 17 wins. And
isn't it so crazy? Like, we're going into the new decade, and we're listing off all these fighters. Think about where we're going to be in 2030. These are going to be the Fedors of that. No, it's going to be way past that. It's it's just crazy, man. When you go into a new year, and
we're getting ready to find out who's the greatest lightweight of all time in April. Knock on wood.
Well, yeah, knock on wood with that. But I think it's such an interesting conversation. I really want our listeners to dig in on this.
Isn't that so crazy though? Khabib fighting Tony, and they're both on the longest win streak. Both fight win. It's so crazy, man. Someone's O may go. I don't think it's gonna go, but someone's O may go, and damn, 12 fight win streak apiece in the same tough ass division. You know, arguably the hardest division in all of MMA.
Johnny, I made a rookie mistake yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago. I went on Instagram, and you know how fans are for Khabib. You know how fans are for Conor. You know how fans could be for Jon Jones. But more likely for Khabib, people go up in arms. For Conor McGregor, people go up in arms. So I made a comment about, Conor McGregor did pretty well. People end up looking like Conor McGregor is a has-been. He, was fighting Mayweather. He lost that. He came back. He fought Khabib. Guys, he's only lost 2 fights in the octagon.
They forget he's 9-2. He's 9-2 in the UFC. They forget that. I mean, I could be a Conor hater too, but all of us, honestly.
Well, what do you hate? What do you hate about Conor? Because it's not hate, it's frustration.
When I hear all these accusations and things like that, like if those other accusations are true, then it's all over with. But let's just say the rape accusations and all that are not even true. I mean, I've hated on him in the past, but the thing is like what pisses me off. Like what would piss me off is when he would. After every single fight would end, he would tweet like he was coming back, and it was like, dude, either shit or get off the pot, like quit teasing this shit, like retire, like stay away, or come back and fight, But at the same time, people need to try to put themselves in his position.
Thank you.
Like he's changed the game forever. And imagine at 29, 30 years old, making $100 million and having the same motivation to get up.
Thank you, Donnie.
And just have the same motivation to get up and get punched in the face all over again. Nobody else would want to do it.
No, Donnie, let me ask you this. Let me throw this in there. Fighter of the decade. I tweeted this out. Conor McGregor. I mean, Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, I think were 2 huge names where it came down to, when you think about fighter of the decade, what does that consist of? To you, let me ask you that. Answer that for me. What does fighter of the decade have to hold to wear the crown?
Titles, defenses, wins. Conor checks a lot of the boxes except for title defenses, but he changed
But what's
the game.
the most
He
important
changed
part?
the game for sure.
What's the most important part? It's growing the fan base, in my opinion.
Yeah. I would look at consistency, but yeah, I understand.
Well,
definitely.
Definitely.
But no, I understand.
There's a balancing act, right? I feel like when you think about fighter of the decade, it's like, who made the most impact outside of the sport? Like, I remember when Conor McGregor was fighting Eddie Alvarez, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had so many people that never watched an MMA fight in their life asking me about who I was going to pick, asking me how much the pay-per-view was going to be. When he fought Mayweather, bro, go back to that. That wasn't that long ago. And think about how big that was.
It was crazy. It's the most. I know they're going to argue that Mayweather Pacquiao was, but it's the most viewed pay-per-view of all time, most bought pay-per-view of all time.
Well, for MMA, who would you be listing in your top three?
John Jones, Conor McGregor, Demetrius Johnson.
Really? In the last 10 years?
Yeah.
So
Conor McGregor, because of his influence on the game, changing the game. Like, the thing is that people out there, they talk so much shit, but the UFC would not be on ESPN. I guarantee it. The UFC would not be on ESPN today if it wasn't for Conor McGregor
and Ronda.
Yeah. But definitely Conor McGregor. It was still the Fox deal when Ronda retired and all that. But if it wasn't for Conor McGregor, I don't think the UFC would have been on ESPN.
Well, this is also.
And the thing is that it does grow the fan base. Like, the thing is, we get pissed off at these crossover fights, and every time I hear them, they make me cringe.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that the UFC is not depending on you or me to buy the reviews. If just us hardcores bought the pay-per-view, the sport could not sustain. Like, they would go bankrupt. The only way that they are able to is by bringing in. Obviously they have a 7-year deal with ESPN, they're getting more guaranteed money than ever. But after 7 years, what happens? The thing is that bringing in new eyeballs to the sport is what truly grows the sport and what secures the sport's future. And so, I think Conor McGregor has obviously contributed that to as much as anyone.
Well, the other big part of it is obviously the pay-per-view buys for Ronda Rousey, the Conor McGregor thing. When ESPN bought them, that was huge, man. When ESPN bought UFC for $4 billion, that was insane. I think that was the biggest news story of the decade, easily.
And that wouldn't have happened without Conor McGregor either. The sale of the UFC to
MEIMG.
Yeah. Whatever the hell ever.
Yeah,
Ari
it's tongue
Emanuel,
twister. It's definitely tongue twister.
That Hollywood talent agency. Ronda Rousey probably had a big deal to do with that too, because she was already signed by.
Hey, Madon. No, don't even say my phone just died. Don't even tell me my phone just died. Guys, why does this always happen to me? I have a charger right here. Didn't plug it in. All right, so 2020 start off. Oh my God. It's going to turn back on in just a second here. Hold on. Let me get the tape recorder back up. But I like what Donnie was saying there, but also, guys, just reflecting back on the last decade, think about that. When we were ending the decade, we were on UFC, or not UFC, we were on Ultimate Fighter Season 10, Rampage Jackson versus Rashad Evans. Think about how long that's been since we've seen that season, which still holds the #1 spot on all-time viewed list for the Ultimate Fighter. And now we've had to say goodbye to it. And think about how much the sport has grown since then. I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't fans of Conor McGregor. They're not fans of Ronda Rousey. But somewhere in your heart, you have to show them a little bit of respect. And this is why I want to know, if it's not Conor, if it's not Ronda, who do you give Fighter of the Decade to? And this is also why 2019 has been insane. because we don't have Conor. We don't have Ronda. Yeah, John Jones is back, but how much is that really doing for the sport? He's not really selling pay-per-views like he was back in the day. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know, because we're diehards. I need to ask other people, but there's no other people around me that's wanting to know when John Jones' next fight is. I don't even think people really care that much anymore. And you look at people like Israel Adesanya. You look at people like Zabit. You look at people like Sugar Shane O'Malley. You look at people. There was a crazy tweet that went out the other day saying the biggest female star returns in Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt, the biggest female star? What are you talking about? Since when is Paige Van Zandt? Paige Van Zandt, yeah, she's beautiful. And I remember when a couple years ago, the UFC was riding with that. They were trying to market the beauty with talent. How well did that work out for them? Tell me, how well did that work out for Paige Van Zandt? And, Paige Van Zandt, she did well. She went on Dancing with the Stars. But how well did it work out for... Yo, my phone died for a second, but I'm just discussing, without Conor McGregor, without Ronda Rousey, and we reflect on 2019, just think about how big of a year it was and with the standouts, and we will do the recap show for the end of the year, but what are the standout fighters to you? Because to me, it's Israel Adesanya, definitely one of the biggest names to come out of 2019.
Oh, hell yeah.
What would be another fighter that stood out to you? Because I'm talking about Zabit. You got, there's so many young up-and-comers that are coming through, too, like Sugar Shane O'Malley, who, took a little break, but...
Yeah, he's getting ready to return soon, though.
I just love the new, fresh faces in 2019. We didn't rely so much on these big superstars, which actually shows a growth in the sport and not leaning on Conor McGregor. And if you guys saw the new Conor McGregor commercial that didn't show Cowboy, by the way, airing M&M's Without Me. Feels so empty without me. Now, everybody, just follow me. Kind of perfect, but at the same time, it's like, What's that?
You want to hear something crazy?
You're on a podcast. We need crazy.
Well, check this out, dude. In the previous decade, right?
Yeah.
In 2009, to end that decade, right? Like, look at what we have now. Like, what we have, like 50-something events, like maybe close to, what is it, like 46 events or something like that? Almost an event every week, right?
Yeah.
And we have so many fight nights. Back in 2009, there was only 20 total events, 15 pay-per-views, and only 3 UFC fight nights.
I think I just did an article. Donnie, I just did an article. It said, and I got it written down actually right here, 12 pay-per-view events.
The very last pay-per-view was UFC 107.
Check this out, Donnie.
Diego Sanchez.
Check this out, Donnie. You ready for this? So 2019 UFC ESPN partnership. First event, we had 600,000 new ESPN Plus subscriptions. It was huge. I think that fight was Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. 23 fight night cards, 12 pay-per-view events, 7 UFC on ESPN events. The first card, TJ versus Cejudo in Brooklyn.
UFC fight night to start the decade.
Now,
in the previous decade, sorry.
Now, Donnie, also I want to bring this up, and let me just drop the mic in front of you a little bit here. Okay, so in 2019, the introduction of Greg Hardy, MVP versus Lima.
He was on that. He was on that first UFC on ESPN Plus card. Yeah, he had that. They put him in the co-main event slot, and he had the disqualification.
Oh, that's right. Where we saw him go into the second round, where he started losing a little bit of energy.
Yeah, he got disqualified for that illegal knee on
I forgot his opponent too, but
yeah, I know that. Crowder.
Also, we had Kelvin Gastelum versus Israel Adesanya, UFC 236 in April. Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. Yoel versus Costa. Nola versus Munoz. Tony versus Cowboy. Cowboy versus Alexander Hernandez. I mean, come on. Hernandez was on the top list on Pure Evil MMA's end of the year show for multiple media members, saying that he was the runner for 2019, that he was going to be the next big star.
So many people were rejoicing when Cowboy knocked him the fuck out because he was talking all that shit at the press conference. He's telling Cowboy, come on with your little, like your geriatric ass, come on with your little pea shooter or something like that. and Cowboy was like, listen, you little fucker. I'm 2 doors down from you. They messed up in the hotel, and I'm 2 doors down from you. Backstage, you didn't have shit to say, but if you have something to say, come knock on my door.
So Hernandez, when was his last fight? I mean, he kind of disappeared halfway through the year.
His last fight was in San Antonio, hometown. It was a hometown fight, and he got a close decision win. But it wasn't. I honestly thought that it could have gone to Trinaldo, but it was a close fight.
Well, that's a tough fight.
The hometown nod in San Antonio.
We also had Darren Till versus Masvidal, Cejudo versus Henry. Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes. Ended in TKO, UFC 238 back in June.
San Antonio was July 20th, but we haven't seen out. We only saw Alexander Hernandez twice in 2019.
How about Ben Askren 2019? Ben Askren.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not celebrating it, but it was interesting to watch, right?
Right. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about City Kickboxing. What a year City Kickboxing has had. I mean, they have 2 champions now. I mean, this is a gym, obviously down in New Zealand. And, I mean, a gym no one heard of. A lot of people hadn't heard of before Israel Adesanya, but they really popped on the map this year. I mean, you have Dan Hooker, who had a hell of a year, went undefeated this year. You had Israel Adesanya, who went undefeated and won a championship, won an interim championship, and then won the undisputed championship against Robert Whittaker. And then you had Volkanovski winning the championship against Max Holloway.
Oh, man.
And what a year City Kickboxing has had.
And you know what, Donnie, on our Pure Evil MMA _ Instagram, at Pure Evil MMA _, I posted a photo of some of the most brutal fight injuries this year. You had Cowboy's eye injury. You had Alistair Overeem's lip, which actually healed within a couple of days.
Oh, my goodness.
You had Mike Perry's nose bent in half.
Yeah. Oh, man. I think, seeing how quickly he came back from it and probably wasn't a good idea, I think Mike Perry's was the worst, man, because that could change your life. We have to see what Colby Covington's like. What Colby Covington's jaw injury is going to end up being like, because I know guys that have never been the same after having their jaw broken.
Speaking of Kobe,
I guess we'll find out.
Speaking of Kobe, while we're on Instagram right now, we finally had a spotting. I mean, he kind of went.
Yeah, I saw that NBA game with the basketball, with the rapper.
With Little Peep, not Little Peep. What the hell is his name? Little Pump. He was with Little Pump.
Oh, no. little cheese puffs.
Little Pump. He's a Little Pump, man. I mean, of all people to be with, and you got Kobe Covington smiling cheek to cheek there, so that was pretty interesting. Also this year,
his face actually looked fine.
It did, didn't it? It's kind of crazy how fast these fighters' faces are healing.
Yeah, it actually looked fine. He had a little mark under his right eye, but other than that, I mean, his face was fine.
I'm sure Little Pump took care of him because he's all hooked up with the porn stars. I don't even want to mention names, but also this year.
Also, 2019 was the year for the rest in peace of James Vick's chin.
Ooh.
It's completely gone. James Vick's chin's gone. Ben Askren retired.
How about DC versus Stipe too?
Yeah, man, that was a great fight. That was a great in the second fight.
So DC says that he wanted to retire at the beginning of 2019. He's still around.
Yeah,
he didn't retire.
He said that it was a very hard deadline of March. His birthday when he turned 40 in March.
Yeah.
And now here we are going into a new year. And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to be honest with you because this should show everyone how much Dana White loves DC. Like, really honestly cares about him. Because I don't care what anyone says. John Jones versus Stipe would have been a much bigger fight. But I think Dana White honestly cares a lot about DC and feels like he owes them. Because the thing is that it's actually bad for the division if DC wins, because now you have a championship that's been vacated due to retirement.
You know what I'm also glad about? Stipe laying off the boxing talk.
I don't know many guys that Dana White would do that for.
I agree with you, 100%. I mean, you got to question, like, what is next for DC? Is there going to be a third fight? What's going on? But at least...
They said that it's going to be a third fight.
There has to be, right?
Because I guess Stipe is still has some nagging injuries and stuff like that from the second fight. So I guess they're working on him as far as what Stipe's timeline to be able to return is.
Now, Donnie, how about the females?
Stipe's going to drag this out as long as you can.
What was that?
I said, Stipe might drag this out as long as he can. I mean, the older DC gets...
Look how long he waited for this fight. He was smart and waited for this rematch instead of taking any other fight. That was smart.
Oh, yeah.
So, Donnie,
sure.
Look, it wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about the girls. How many times the titles changed within the females division. Let's talk about Rose versus Andrade, and then Andrade versus Zhang. I mean, come on.
Wiley Zhang could honestly, this might sound crazy to people, but if Wiley Zhang can hold on to that title, this is no exaggeration. She may end up becoming the biggest star the UFC has ever seen. She went on some reality show or some show in China,
which is huge. Which is, UFC went there because of that reason.
We have what? The last consensus or whatever, it was like 300 and something million Americans. Maybe it's a little bit more now, but in China, we know how many people they have. They have over 1 billion. But she was on a show in China, and 1.3 billion people watched.
Whoa!
I'm not saying she's going to become the biggest star in America.
Donnie, count to 1 billion. Count to 1 billion. For all of our listeners right now, count to 1 billion. That's a huge number. You can put all of Comcast's regular daily broadcast together, and it would come somewhere near that. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I mean, just think of the Super Bowl. Like 1/3 of. I think the highest rated Super Bowl is like 1/3, like the average of.
Think about tonight, Donnie. Think about people watching the ball drop. There wasn't 1 billion people watching. Come on.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. If she goes on a show and over 1 billion people watch, I mean, she could literally, if she can hold on to that title and defend it a couple times, she could literally become the biggest star the sport's ever seen. And she's also learning some English now, has a little bit of charisma. I know some people don't like her, but I mean, she showed that video with JJ, Joanna Jędrzejczyk's picture, like on the punching bag.
Oh yeah, they're going to be fighting next. Cool. Her and Joanna are going to be fighting next, actually. And
yeah, man, that's a good fight, man. It's lying pretty even. I think the last time I saw Wiley Zhang was like a -140 favorite. So right close to a pick-up with a slight lean to Wiley Zhang, but yeah.
So, Donnie, I want to wrap this conversation up in a second, but I think this was a really good transition to bring up this last topic here for this part of the show, and it's, UFC going to China. Huge, because there's money to be made there.
Especially with Zhang actually winning. I mean,
in the way that she won.
That was exactly. I mean, the thing is, the UFC went to China. Andrade was obviously the favorite to win that fight. It couldn't have ended better from the UFC.
That was so crazy, man. That was such a crazy fight. But my point here being is, the UFC really is thirsty for that money, man. And we're seeing it because they raised the pay-per-views by $5 heading into 2020.
Then they raised the price of ESPN Plus.
Whoa. Excuse me? They've raised the price of ESPN Plus?
Well, I saw a thing where, like, the thing is, isn't it like $60 a year right now, or a little under
Yeah.
$60 a year, $4.99 times 12, so what is that, $59.92 or something? And I think I saw a price of like maybe $69.99 or $79.99 per ESPN Plus.
It's like $60, yeah.
Yeah, I think the price went up like
$67.
$10.
Just think about
I
that
could
for a
be
second.
wrong, but
Just
I
think
could be
about that
wrong,
for
but
a
I'm pretty
second.
sure someone
And yet
posted
they
it.
don't allow these fighters to have sponsors on their t-shirts or shorts. They can't wear a hat with a sponsor on it that they can take off halfway down the the walkout. Nothing. But yet you have
When
Bruce
Cyborg-
Buffer in there
when
saying,
Cyborg fought-
"We'll keep the light on for you." It's just messed up, man.
Exactly. Dude, when Cyborg fought her last fight in the UFC, she had a shirt on in the back that said Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes 2.
Yes.
And this was in the back. This is after the fight's over with, after she won, and this is everything's over with. And so all she has is the post-fight press conference. And she wore a shirt that said Amanda Nunes versus Cyborg 2. And they made her take it off before she flew out for the press conference.
What about Matt Mitrione walking out for the weigh-ins? He was wearing his Jordans. They said, "Nope, not allowed." Had to go up barefoot.
Man, it's crazy. Well, Amanda Nunes can do what she wants, and she can wear a Lions mask because she's Dana White's favorite fighter now.
Well, I mean, who is the Lions mask, sponsored by? Goosebumps?
I know,
Come on.
I know it's nothing wrong.
R.L.
I
Stine?
didn't see a Reebok on it. I didn't see no Reebok on that Lions thing.
Yeah, you make a good point. And when the Reebok deal went through, Cowboy came out with like an American flag, and he had to take that off.
Yeah.
Well, there was a little
Crazy.
different thing going on there.
The only two sponsors I've seen on anyone's shorts is the P3
Monster?
portable snacks, the P3 Monster, that was the other one, and the other one was the P3 portable protein snacks or whatever the hell.
Or Devour,
That's-
right? Isn't
that's
that the
another
UFC's new sponsor?
You always see that Cowboy commercial where kind of like they're cowboys, like it shows him head kicking someone and shows him riding a horse and shit.
Dude, Brian Ortega probably can't even come out with a Modelo's, or what is it? Brian Ortega had a choice.
Modelo. Yeah, Modelo.
He probably
Yeah.
can't even come out with Modelo's logo on.
I know, and you know, like 11 years ago, he had a choice.
Wait, did he?
I mean, the commercial was 10 years ago, but I'm pretty sure it's about 11 or 12 years ago he had a choice now.
Donnie, I saw your tweet. What was it, like 2 weeks
man.
ago? It was like, I can't watch anything without them telling me that
I know,
10 years ago, Brian Ortega had a choice.
It drives me crazy, man. He can either keep fighting in the streets for his life or bring it to the octagon.
If there's two things we need to ditch in 2020, it's the UFC's intro song and Brian Ortega had a choice. Those are the two things we need to get rid of. But switching gears here, Donnie, PFL did go down tonight. Bring us through that. I mean, but before you bring us through that, what was your predictions for this before we
My
go through the
predictions?
results?
Well,
Let me
the
hear
thing
your
is, man,
predictions.
Listen, I can't brag too much because, there was a lot of heavy favorites, like Taylor Harrison was a heavy favorite. She opened as like just the one favorite, so $800 to win 100. I think she closed at minus 1,200 favorites, so 1,200 to win 100. But I had a perfect card. There was only one underdog on the card, and that was Sordi, who defeated Jordan Johnson in the light heavyweight. Sordi was the only underdog. I did pick him to win. And but yeah, I had an undefeated card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 0. So, but I mean, I won't say I can't take. I mean, the thing is that someone said, "Oh, you picked all favorites," and I said, "No, I picked all."
Well, I mean,
favorites
who would
but
you
one."
guys pick? Like, come on.
Yeah, I was like, no, I picked all favorites except for Sordi, who was an underdog. But why? I don't make picks based on who's the favorite. I make picks based on who I think's going to win.
Yeah.
I make bets on the odds. I don't make picks on the odds. So you expect me just to pick some underdogs who I don't think is going to win just so I said I picked the underdog and they lose? And I mean, no. So I picked who I thought was going to win. But there was a lot of heavy favorites. But yeah, we opened the night with Brendan Loughnane. He was the one that was on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. And the kid is extremely talented. He was in the UFC and maybe a little bit prematurely. And so he ended up going back to the real team, got a bunch of good wins. and he was on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, and he was the one that was dominating the fight, and in the last 10 seconds, he shot for a takedown. And just because he shot for that takedown,
yes.
just because he shot with that for the takedown with 10 seconds left in the fight,
Dana said, nope, that's not what we want.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. He refused to sign him.
How crazy. He made an example out of him. He used his career, his sacrifices, as an example for other fighters.
Yeah. But he said that. He said, you know what? If I'm wrong about him, then he'll be a big free agent signing for PFL.
Check out this check. Yeah.
It was so cool, though, because people think, like, if you're in the tournament, it's the only way you get money and things like that. But he was actually, I saw a video of Brendan Loughnane, and he was able to give his mom the keys to a house. He bought her a house. So that was pretty cool that he was paying enough money to buy his mom a house.
Bro, okay, so he has a record of, what is it, 18-3? 18-3. 11-4 against his opponent, David.
Yep.
And
David Valente tonight in a showcase bout. It was on ESPN Plus. They started at 6 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN Plus. So
6 p.m. or 7 p.m.?
Show. What's that?
6 p.m. or 7?
6 p.m. They started at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. And it was like the pre-show, and then they had Brendan Loughnane. He fought David Valente, and Brendan Loughnane won a pretty comfortable decision. And then at 7 p.m. is when it transitioned to ESPN2 on TV.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
Yeah, and then we started with the first title.
Think about that, man. Just think about, his performance on the Contender Series, and Dana White split decision in that second. And I remember that caused a lot of controversy on social media. People are flipping out.
The thing is that he's a great fighter, and he's from England. And the thing is that England is kind of thirsty for stars in the UFC. And I mean, it would have been. He's a great fighter, man. I like the kid a lot.
How much do you think he would have made?
That dude's like help with the low cap kicks. Say again?
How much do you think he would have made if he stayed signed to the UFC off the Contender Series? Not much.
12,500 to show, 12,500 to win.
And how much would he go home with? Because you got to pay your nutritionist, you got to pay your gym, you got to pay to bring more team members out to your corner. Like, there's so much that goes into it. You're broke.
He's already had two fights in the PFL, and so I'm pretty sure they give him money up front, obviously, if he was able to buy his mom a house. But the thing is that it's
this is what pisses me off, Donnie.
Are looking at the demise of PFL. Like, I see people saying, like, Kayla Harrison better win that $1 million this year, because how much longer will PFL be around for, and this and that. I guess they're tying it to the demise of World Series of Fighting, and since it's under the same leadership. But the thing is that
it's been a success.
This secure TV deal with ESPN. They got a bunch of batteries. Like,
we had Mike Tyson putting the belts on people.
Yeah.
People, for people just scrolling through the channels or whatever and seeing just a little preview on their Facebook or anything, seeing Mike Tyson there, they're like, what's going on here? Let me tune in. Oh, it's only $4.99. Okay, I'll tune in. I got some time to waste. It's New Year's Eve. What else am I going to watch? In the background, Mike Tyson's there. Let's see what this is all about. Bada bing, bada boom.
I'm hearing this big deal that Kayla Harrison signed, never mind $1 million she just won. I heard the new deal she just signed.
This is what I gotta. This is that. Okay, Donnie. How many times have we heard just this year that this is the most paid female fighter? We heard this for Chris Cyborg when she signed Bellator, and now we're hearing it for Kayla.
That's true.
So what's going on here? Who's who? Because Ronda's got to be waving the flag, in my opinion, right?
Right. Well, with Kayla Harrison making $1 million, she definitely made more than Miami's did this year.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, right? We really don't know.
With the pay-per-view guys, we don't know, but I don't think the pay-per-view guys did as well as the UFC claims, or else they'd be releasing them.
I remember, being backstage last year, while the ball dropped, you had all the winners. You had Lance there, you had Schultz there, you had Kayla there, and Kayla was the Lone Ranger. The only person there that wasn't holding the Happy Gilmore, I'll take the big checks if you still got those. She was the only one
Right.
not holding the $1 million check, and she said, you know what? Next year, I want that shot. And she got it, man. And there was only one moment.
She's pretty much the face of the promotion.
She really has been growing that way. But have you heard what she said recently? Is that she does at some point want to expand. You know, I interviewed Justin Gaethje backstage years ago, and he said, you know, he was happy fighting with World Series of Fighting. He said, what's stepping up? It's making a paycheck. Kayla Harrison went home with $1 million check. How much is she going to make going to Bellator? How much is she going to make going to the UFC? But at the same time, it's always going to be a shadow overhead, a dark cloud of fans going, well, you're not fighting the best of the best. Because look at Fedor. He fought that thing. You're going to have Dana White sitting there with a big page that he printed out.
built a 145-pound division, and Kayla Harrison fights at 155 and says she doesn't believe
doesn't want to cut. Yeah.
So she would have to cut weight in order to go to one of the other promotions, because tonight was the first female champion in 155 pounds in history.
People are also discussing Kayla versus Cyborg. Don't want to see it, man. I don't want to see it because I still don't think Kayla's ready for it. I still don't think Kayla's ready for it.
7-0, two of the women versus girl Pacheco. You know something crazy? Kayla Harrison fought Larissa Pacheco tonight, right? Back in 2014, Jessica Andrade fights at 115, right? So you have Jessica Andrade who fights at 115, and you have Larissa Pacheco who now fights at 155.
Whoa.
And back in 2014, Jessica Andrade actually finished Larissa Pacheco.
Well, you got to think, like, what are these girls walking around weights and this and that?
But they fight at a 40-pound difference now. But she finished with Jessica Andrade. That was back when Jessica Andrade fought at 135. And Larissa Pacheco, that was back when she had blonde hair. She had 2 fights in the UFC. She fought one time in 2014, and she was finished.
I want to see those photos of her with the weight difference now. I'm interested to see that.
I don't know, man. But yeah, she got finished twice. Once by GDR and once by Jessica Andrade. But those losses don't look too bad in hindsight. And she hadn't had a loss since 2015 until she lost to Kayla Harrison in the opening round.
Well, you know what? Kayla also, I think she was 13, 14, or 15 years old, had a judo match with Ronda Rousey back in the day, which she obviously lost because she was such a young girl. But it almost seems like PFL is the perfect spot for Kayla. I mean, there's a lot of people that go to the UFC and they go in there and they win 3 fights and they get thrown to the dogs and they get lost in the shuffle and then they just fade away. This is good for Kayla.
And we also be remiss if we didn't bring up the fact that, I mean, the PFL just signed Rory McDonald. I mean, I know a lot of people think he's done, but it's still, I mean, that's still a high-profile signing for them.
That's huge, man. That's the biggest name they got over there, in my opinion. I mean, Lance Palmer's huge. Ray Cooper, big name, but Rory McDonald, come on.
It's interesting, man.
That's light years away.
Don't get me wrong, I like Ray Cooper a lot. But I wouldn't even put him in the top 20.
No, you can't. You can't. You cannot do that. Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, Magomed Shabipov or whatever, he fights at 170. I think he had to pull out early in the year, but he submitted Ray Cooper in the finals last year.
I was there, man. I was there.
I think him and Roy McDonald are now the 2 favorites to win it next year.
You know what, man? There are so many of Ali Abdelaziz's fighters over at PFL. They basically run the damn thing. It's crazy.
It's like World Series of Fighting all over again. And hopefully that's not their demise.
So, moving on, I do want to discuss one last thing for PFL. What were some standout moments on this card for our listeners?
Oh, man. All right, so Sordi, he became a millionaire, and he's the first. I mean, we've obviously had a mini boxing champions come from Argentina, but Sordi, he opened the night in the second fight with the opening fight on ESPN2. He gave, I kind of felt bad, too, because I saw Jordan Johnson. I picked against Jordan Johnson. He was a favorite. But I saw him on a TMZ video, and he was talking about what he would do with $1 million. He was saying how he would buy his family a Kia.
A Kia? I have a Kia. Bro, I have a Kia.
Yeah. They were like, yeah. I used to have a Kia myself, dude. It was the most reliable car I've had.
Bro, Evil Eddie drives a Kia. I want a Kia.
It was so reliable. But anyways, yeah, he was saying how he would buy a Kia and had to get all the children in it, and he would pay down student loan debts. I used to have a fighter that's fighting on TV talking about paying down student loan debts. So I felt kind of bad for him that he lost. I think the loser still gets $200,000, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I've heard that last year.
But why a Kia? Why a Kia? Like, bro, come on.
I don't know. Yeah,
I have a Kia. Like, come on, man. A Kia.
Yeah, I don't know.
He might as well have said, I want a Honda. I mean, I love my Kia, but, you might as well say, I want a. Well, like, why not say it? The new Tesla? I want the new Tesla.
Right.
I want a Kia.
Right. But dude, that new Tesla truck, if it actually ever comes out, it's only $30,000. It's supposed to be bulletproof windows.
Yeah, did you see the video?
I saw the video. It all went right through the window. Cracked the window, whatever.
He was like, try it again. No, this time just try it again.
Huh?
In the video, he was like, yeah, try it again.
I remember when they were hitting the body with a rubber sledgehammer. It still looked like it was pretty durable. The body. Yeah, I actually liked the fold-out back. Like, it was pretty cool. I enjoyed the fold-out.
It looked crazy.
But Solis became the first MMA champion from Argentina. He defeated Jordan Johnson via ground and pound in the first round. Lance Palmer, he talked about afterwards how he came in with a nagging injury or something. But
wait, what did he come through with? He had a what injury?
Lance Palmer, because they basically talked about how all he did was wrestle his way to a victory, and he said he wanted to try some different things, but he came into the fight with some nagging injuries, and that Alex Gilpin has made him a better fighter. So that's their third time fighting now. The thing is that Lance Palmer was supposed to fight Daniel Pineda, I think. Yeah, Daniel Pineda. But Daniel Pineda failed a drug test.
Oh, damn.
So then they took the next guy with the next guy with the most amount of points, which was Alex Gilpin. Because Alex Gilpin, he's finished his last 3 fights that weren't Lance Palmer. He lost to Lance Palmer in the semifinals. And so they fought again. There's a couple, I wouldn't say close calls, because Lance Palmer, I mean, he had a couple chokes on Lance Palmer early, but Lance Palmer he's a strong dude, man.
And it's nice seeing him win it, because we've watched him for how many years now? You know what I mean?
Oh, man, a long time, man.
So last year when we got out of PFL after the ball dropped and we went backstage, we did the backstage presser and all that, interviewing them. We went outside and it was me, Lance Palmer, Joseph Benavidez, Lindsey Van Zant, Kerry Stellar, and James Krause. We're all standing outside, just catching a breath, and Lance puts the belt around his waist, and he goes, "Fat guy and a little belt." Like, he was just so happy. Got $1 million. He's got the girlfriend, which, I don't know. There's a lot of people that don't feel for his girlfriend. Bro, him and his girlfriend are the coolest couple. Like, if you know them, like, they're just so cool. That whole group are just, that's the lunch table you want to sit at. Him, Joseph Benavidez, Krause. Like, come on, man. Like,
if they don't get him in competition, he'd be making $1 million a year every year for the foreseeable future.
It's just, imagine that.
He's freaking strong, man. He just has a gas tank, man. And,
how many fighters in the UFC made $1 million this year?
I saw people talking shit saying that all he did was wrestle and this and that. I don't care. With $1 million on the line.
What would you do for $1 million? The people saying that would lick their.
Have to do it, man. And if the wrestling's working and the guy can't stop your takedowns, why would you stay on the feet and take a chance of a flash KO or something? Fuck that, man. Keep doing what's working.
The people that are talking smack about Lance Palmer's wrestling, I wonder what they would do for $1 million in front of them. I wonder if somebody went, just wrestle this guy and I'll give you $1 million. And would you do it? And yet these people are going, oh, he wrestled. Bro, you would lick your great-grandmother's tit out of her coffin for $1 million. Get out of my face.
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. And probably the fight of the night.
Tickle your father's balls. Like, get out of here, man. People would molest little children for $1 million. Like, there's so many sick people out there. All Lance Palmer had to do was wrestle. That's it.
Yeah.
That's why there's people that talk shit about Eddie Alvarez.
I can appreciate all sport. Like I said, if you don't like to watch wrestling, go fucking watch kickboxing.
Well, Donnie, look at Eddie Alvarez. When he came to the UFC, people were like, oh, he's wrestling. But he's wearing the UFC title. So, what do you mean?
His first fight, and after that, he took out, using his wrestling, and, when he's been Anthony Pettis' Achilles heel over the years. Guys who pressure him with the wrestling and hold him against the cage, and that's what Eddie Alvarez did to him.
So, Donnie, before we end PFL's discussion here and move on to the last discussion, just go down the line. I got the website pulled up here for us at pureevilmma.com. I don't know if you do, but can you read off from the top to bottom? Can you read off from top to bottom the results for our listeners really quickly?
So in the showcase fight, wasn't a tournament or anything, it was just a showcase fight. Brendan Loughnane, he won a comfortable decision against David Valente. As we mentioned, Sordi, first Argentine MMA champion, defeated Jordan Johnson via KO, TKO, ground and pound in the first round. Lance Palmer wrestled his way to a comfortable victory over Alex Gilpin. Natan Schultz defeated Razvan Habov. That was the fight of the night for sure. They fucked each other up, man.
Why?
I think
Paint the picture.
Oh, dude, it was just a war, man. Those guys just hit these shots together. They were fighting in a phone booth. The difference ended up being Schultz had the gas tank. I think his Radzhabov, he came out in the first 2 rounds, man, and he was heavy shots. And the Tom Schultz hurt him in the first round. But, man, they just kept, they were just, that Radzhabov, that dude's good, man. Like, he's really good. And,
what a weird last name. Radzhabov. Like, what's that, the American alphabet, bro?
Yeah, it's hard. It's tough, but Radzhabov, man, he's a tough dude, man. Like, I think what won the fight for Schultz was the low cap kicks, man. He hurt him badly with some kicks. He stopped him a couple times and just get on top and secure top.
With what you're saying, I'm pulling up Twitter and look at that fight.
And they were throwing bombs at each other. Like, I was wondering why. I was like, Schultz, you had a bet on Schultz. Get the hell out of there, man. Quit fucking these heavy uppercuts, and he was just walking forward with this, like, he don't want to do this turtling up, walking forward, eating like 49, 46. One judge had it 49, 45, so one of them had it 10-8 round, and then one judge had it, I think, 48, 47.
Yeah, I saw that. One judge had wait, say that again, because one judge had it pretty crazy.
I'm pretty sure 2 judges had it, like, one judge had it 49, 46, which means 4 rounds to 1. I think the round they had to give Radzhabov was probably
Didn't one judge have it at like 44 though?
Yeah, it might have been 49, 44, 49, 46, and then 47, 3 rounds to 2 from 1. Only round I gave Radzhabov was the second round.
Okay, so here's the actual card right here. 49, 44, 48, 47, 49, 46. First card, the 49, 44.
49, 44, so that's 2 10-8 rounds. Oh, no, excuse me, that's 1 10-8 round. And then, 50, 45 would be 5 rounds or nothing. Yeah, it's 1 10-8 round. And then, judge had it 4 rounds, and one judge had it 3 rounds to 2. I guess you could see the fifth round of Razumov, but I honestly thought he only won the second round.
How crazy is that? No, the first judge gave the fourth and fifth, 8 and 8 for Luke.
Oh, there was those. For who?
The third and fourth round, they gave Luke 8. 10-8. 2 10-8 rounds for Luke losing against Schultz. So Schultz won 2 rounds, the third and fourth, 10-8 and 10-8 for the first judge.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's. Do you agree with that? You agree with that, Donnie?
So the Razumov guy, right? 2 10-8
Yeah.
rounds?
Nathan Schultz won the third and fourth round, 10-8 against his opponent.
Yeah, I'm not sure about 2 10-8. I mean, I could see maybe.
I said the
maybe
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't remember any rounds being close to 10-8. I mean, he hurt him in.
Agree.
Nathan Schultz hurt him in the first round, but the first round was still pretty competitive. I mean, Nathan Schultz, I think that round. The second round, I thought you could get the Razumov, and then the third, fourth, and fifth, I thought Schultz won, but I didn't see anything that could be a 10-8. I guess maybe because he dropped him a couple times with leg kicks.
You want to hear what people on Twitter said? So this is from Victor at VICTOMMATING. Says, thought the second round could have been a 10-8. Oh well, the right man won, in my opinion. Half True History said, bad judge. And this is the best one. Sergio Bargan says, were the judges drinking? That's the best one right there. Because
yeah, I didn't think the second round could be 10-8. I think if anything, Razumov was one.
It's crazy. Let's look at this. Hold on. Did any of the other judges give any of those rounds to
me, Razumov won the second. If I remember correctly, I thought he won the second.
Yeah, he won the second on all judges' scorecards. Correct.
Yeah, that was just okay. So my memory serves me. And then another judge must have given him the 48-47 judge must have given him the fifth.
The fifth. Oh yeah, one judge gave him the fifth round. The second judge.
See, yeah. That was the only other round I could see that Razumov could have won.
This is an issue, Donnie. This is an issue.
I still personally had a full for sure.
This is a huge issue, man. We still are battling with.
Yeah,
in 2020.
It's like the Colby Covington fight. He had it 3-1. The one judge had it 2-2, and then you look at this fight.
We can't talk about it because we can't talk about it because it's a decision, though, right? If it did, yeah. Oh,
I talk about this. I know people will say, all we do is land train, all this shit. But just think of how small the region Dagestan is.
Wait, hold on. What's the next fight? It's Ali Asev versus Jared, right?
Yeah, he finished Jared Russo in the fourth round. I'm not going to lie, that fight was a bit of a snooze in a way.
Okay, TKO at 409.
He won all 3 rounds, in my opinion. Jared Russo is a 3-time All-American at Oklahoma State University. And he got ragdolled like he never wrestled in his life by a fighter who was 7-0, 8-0. So this fight with Izzy, in his first fight, he's now a world champion and $1 million. But he ended up finishing Russo in the fourth round, the ground and pound. And Izzy is another one of these Dagestan fighters.
Yeah.
Dagestani fighters. I mean, it's just amazing to me. We grew up every day, happened to go to school. You only got a couple hours to practice. These guys, they're schooling in wrestling, they're schooling in combat. And it's amazing how a region so small can come to a high level. I mean, we have wrestlers, but some of the wrestlers from Dagestan literally have the Olympics. And they go to other countries. I mean, this is insane how many great fighters come from Dagestan, but small region in Russia. I mean, just think of how many high-level players are from there. It's insane. Most likely it would be, and to be, but it's crazy, man. I mean, I can think of like 35 guys that are signed to major organizations out of that small little region in Russia. It's crazy.
Those guys bring home $1 million check. Like, that's...
Oh, man.
People
Yeah,
forget
man. I mean,
how many...
geez.
Like I was talking about before, Donnie, when I didn't bring it up on the podcast yet, but last year when I was covering PFL, this is the first year of the last been there. This year, when there's families that are around the media, it could be awkward because you're sitting there, you're watching the fighter's girlfriend, you're watching the fighter's mom or father or little sister there reacting to every punch, everything. And
yeah, man, Roshov's family, they kept showing Roshov's family, and he ended up getting finished by ground and pound, and it was kind of sad.
Wait, what you're saying that they were highlighting that on the broadcast?
Well, no, they kept showing Jared Roshov's family during the fight.
Yeah.
Because I think because it was probably, a fight that contained a lot of taking Roshov down and just kind of.
Well, here's the issue, though, Donnie.
So it would kind of pan away from the fight and show Roshov's family and the CMT in the fourth round. I mean, it was kind of sad. I mean, he's an aging fighter. He's going to have plenty of chances. I mean, he deserved to win, but I guess it would have been pretty cool to see Jared Roshow win $1 million at this stage of his career. But
it's mystery to anybody out there listening to this right now or watching any sport that we crave drama. You could keep the cameras on the fight the whole time, but what's going to make it more interesting? These are the talks that go on backstage. These are the talks that go on in between each event. How can we make it more interesting for the people viewing at home? How can we make social media more interesting? Just look at social media. People crave drama. You have $1 million on the line. You have the family there in the crowd. So last year when I was there, I had Ray Cooper's family next to, or behind me, right? Ray Cooper's brother. He's sitting there.
All in the crowd, everywhere.
Ray Cooper's brother is behind me. Watch his brother from a little boy, from Little League all the way through elementary, middle school, high school, go through prom, get picked on, go dreams, make sacrifices, not show up for holidays, not being able to be there for some family priorities. And that's big for that culture that they grew up in. And now you have a shot to win $1 million? They almost kicked Ray Cooper's brother. Donnie, they almost kicked Ray Cooper's...
You got submitted in the finals, and you got a chance at redemption this year after getting knocked out.
Donnie, they almost kicked out Ray Cooper's brother. And I sat back and thought, hold on a second. You are sitting here with the camera on the family. You know what's at stake because you made these stakes. You have $1 million on the line, and you're filming the family's reaction to what they're going to react when the fight's ended or thrown to a decision.
Yeah, that's not cool. Yeah,
you're going to throw his brother out?
I can see it right before the fight and things like that. And I do like how, the PFL, and that's the one knock I have against the UFC is that in a lot of ways they're not telling these guys stories. A lot of these fighters, because people forget that they're not just these animals fighting in a cage.
After Mayhem Miller kind of started a scruff on national television. After Mayhem Miller started a scruffle on national television, they kind of backed away from focusing on the drama or bringing people in the cage, unless it's Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. I know they do it for the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series and stuff like that, but that's the one knock I have on the UFC, but they do have, 600 fighters or whatever, but
yeah, there's a lot.
I think if people could that's why I guess I'm so close to Jared Gordon, and, he's like such an inspiration to me, but...
I know this is a little bit off topic. I know it's a little bit off topic. This kind of reminds me of the drama between Verdum and Edmond Taverdian. Have you seen Edmond Taverdian at all in 2019? Where's he been?
Yeah. He coaches Edmund Shabazian, that really talented young kid. He, I think Edmund Tarverdyan keeps his mouth shut a lot more days. I remember when Verdun fought Travis Brown.
Yeah.
Verdun tried to kick Tarverdyan after the fight, but he's like,
Camera now.
a lot of people, say that. I think that telling people that she's not professional boxers and sparring and shit like that, and then she's going in there and trying to outbox.
Well, obviously, like, to back him up, he's trying to promote. To back him up, he's trying to promote his girl. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I interviewed, fighters that talked with him or on Ultimate Fighter with all the drama and stuff like that, and they just said he's a weirdo. He's a weirdo.
Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt. Once he moved from that, this time he finished Alistair Overeem.
People say he went there just for Ronda.
What's that?
People say he went there just for Ronda.
Yeah, once he left, probably did. But once he left there, this dude was one of the most promising heavyweights. I mean, he even had his own knockout hit after him when guys tried to take him down.
He was good back in the day, Donnie. You remember that? He was at that weight class moving like a middleweight. He looked great.
Those are the Travis Brown elbows when someone would try to get in on a double leg against the cage, and they would knock him out with those elbows. That was a huge win. And then he moved to Glendale. I think
Brandon Schaub he knocked out. I mean, Brandon Schaub was, obviously hot and cold sometimes, but he was just a killer, man. Travis Brown was a killer. And I'll never forget, what was it?
I still remember when he fought Derek Lewis. He fucking kicked
Oh my God, Derek Lewis almost gave up.
Yeah, he kicked Derek Lewis in the stomach, and the next thing you know, he almost Travis Brown did.
That was a huge win for Derek Lewis, man.
Derek Lewis came after the fight that he won. That he just had
that showed the heart in Derek Lewis, though. You know what I mean? Like,
but
I was at the edge of my seat saying,
it is so, it's sad, man, because he was so fucking talented, man. Like you said, he moves like a middleweight. I mean, he was just, you got some of that Ronda Poutine and
it just got to his head. I don't know what happened, man. You know what he's doing now, though?
Yeah.
You know what he's doing now, though, Donnie?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him all the time. Like,
he's doing little horror movies.
They're always working on a farm,
which is kind of cool.
What's that?
It's kind of cool, but you know what? I want me and you to do a reaction, kind of like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 to. Okay, so him and Ronda just released a horror movie, which is like a funny kind of horror. It's called Tables. I think that's the name of it. Tables, where it's killer picnic tables. And him and Ronda and Travis are going around battling killer picnic tables. That's what Travis Brown and Ronda are doing right now.
Well, I heard about the movie. I saw
on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere right now. Sorry. Well, I'll pull it up later.
He has like 3 kids. He has like 3 kids or something, and like Ronda's like on mommy duty all the time. It looks like based on the
she's
videos,
she's trying to have a baby, I think, right? She left the WWE. Ronda left the WWE. I think she said she's trying to have a child. I mean, that's a lot to do.
I'm not sure if she's gotten. I don't know. I haven't really seen any updates with her as of late, to be honest with you, but I just know that they're always fucking with.
They're always doing something.
Pigs and shit on the farm and stuff like that.
Well, here's the other thing, Donnie. That just is crazy. If you're working for the WWE, they stay on the road all year long. That's a lot of work.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, people like Ronda Rousey and, I mean, I think a lot of the, I mean, I'm not really in that world. People know on Twitter that I hate WWE, but...
She doesn't need to do that, though.
I think there's a lot of people in the WWE that resented her because, they were always on the road, 49, 50 weeks out of the year, and here she comes from out of nowhere and is making way more. They put in their dues, for 20 years to try to pursue this WWE career. Then she comes out of nowhere, and she only has to show up to the big show.
She's the CM Punk of the WWE, and CM Punk's
the
Ronda Rousey of the UFC. Yeah.
Like just like Brock Lesnar, like she probably everyone else is cramped up in business class while she's riding first class to every show. And
it happens, man. It happens.
Making so much money, but
that's the American greed, bro. That's American greed.
It's capitalism, isn't it? I mean,
exactly.
That's what sells.
So Donnie, before we end this, just to rewind a little bit, PFL. Let's end it on the PFL, and I got one more thing to talk about really quick. What would you rate PFL?
What's that?
What would you rate PFL? I mean, what was the fight of the night for you?
The fight of the night, I guarantee nobody can disagree that it was Nathan Schultz versus that Radzaboff. That was the best fight. And then Ray Cooper III in the co-main event, he got rocked by Mashad. I mean, and he ate it though, and he hurt David Mashad with a body shot and ended up finishing him. Mashad was down on the ground in pain for a while. So that was a good fight. I would say the Todd Schultz versus Radzaboff was the fight of the night, and Ray Cooper fight was good for while it lasted. And then the main event, obviously, Kayla Harrison defeated Larissa Pacheco via unanimous decision.
Last comment I want to make on that. I saw somebody tweet out over at MMA Sucka saying that there were basically hundreds and hundreds of tickets that were still available for sale leading up 5 days before the event. From what you saw, did it seem like the place was full?
No. I mean, it was pretty cool seeing Mike Tyson there. I mean, to me, it seemed like most of the family had been there.
No, I'm saying for the crowd, was the venue full of fans?
No.
No.
No, I mean, like I said, it seemed more like family members, to be honest with you.
It seemed more like what?
Like the family members of the fighters.
Family members, yeah. Which close in the very close sections.
Yeah.
It's not the,
to be honest with you, I really didn't pay attention to I really didn't look at the crowd too much, but I wouldn't say. I mean, I think they used the smaller venue in Madison Square.
Well, yeah, it's not that big, Donnie. If you saw the UFC 205 press conference, that's the same place that they had tonight's event.
Yeah.
It's not that big.
The smaller venue inside of Madison Square Garden.
Exactly.
Hulu
Theater.
They had way more practice than PFL had at TAP tonight, but yeah.
Hulu Theater is what it is. It's Madison Square Garden.
There you go.
But it's the Hulu Theater is what it is. And it's where they had the UFC 205 press conference, the infamous Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor. Last thing I want to discuss before we go here, guys. Well, two things, really. Donnie, we won an award for Pure Evil MMA. We won Best Pop Culture References Podcast. So.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Love that. Also,
man.
This is the biggest one yet. We came in the top 10 out of 50 amongst The Fighter and the Kid, Luke Thomas, Bloody Elbow, the biggest names. I'll repost the exact people they're up there with. The top 10 list for Player FM's best Bellator MMA podcasts. Not the best MMA podcast. We did come in the top 50, which we landed in the top 30 of the best MMA podcasts out of the top 50. But we landed in the top 10 of the best MMA or Bellator MMA podcasts, which there are thousands of podcasts out there on MMA.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Top 10, man. With Luke Thomas, Brendan Schaub, The Fighter and the Kid. Fighter and the Kid don't even talk about Bellator. So it's crazy. It's just crazy, man. Just being in the top 10. 2020, me and Donnie and the rest of the staff, I mean, we got a lot to discuss, obviously, at PureVilleMMA.com, but we got a lot of revamping that's going to be going on, a lot more content that's going to be coming out, and a lot more promises that are going to be fulfilled for our listeners out there as well. So, Donnie, before we end this, I do want to discuss this last, or hold on, before we discuss the last thing, we had some requests, Donnie. We had some requests.
Okay.
We're going to have a contest. We're having a contest between a couple MMA podcast hosts. 4 MMA podcast hosts, maybe 6. They want to do an MMA trivia bracket where we're going to host it. And the winner's going to get a $15 gift certificate for Amazon or iTunes or whatever they want, which PureEvilMMA.com will cover, which I actually have the card right here in my wallet, which is somewhere over here. Which, Oscar, where's my wallet, bro? But, where is my, oh, here it is. Got it right here. And, Donnie, I want you to help me with this. So the way it's going to work, one night it's going to be 2-on-2. The next night it's going to be 2-on-2. And then the third night is going to be the championship night. So I'll do the first night. If you can host the second night, I'll teach you how to do it. And then me and you will both host the third night. I think that would be pretty cool for the brand to do. And then we'll give away a $15 gift certificate. So we'll keep you guys updated with that. So, Donnie, last thing I wanted to talk about before we leave. Heading into 2020, we got some pretty exciting cards coming up, man. We got...
Yeah, January 18th.
That's the first card, the UFC 236, correct?
246.
226?
246.
240. Yeah, you just threw me off. 246. What did I say? 236?
Yeah. I think you said 246, but I just wanted to say it correctly.
No, I was wrong. You were right. I was wrong.
Oh, okay.
He was right.
I don't know.
Tell me I was
Who the hell
wrong.
knows, man? There's so many nowadays, but yeah, 246. Conor versus Cowboy. I've heard a lot of people say I'm not very happy with the card, but I think it's a pretty
Really?
solid card.
Wait, what have you been hearing?
It's just a shitty card.
Who's on the card? Do you know? Let me take a look. Do you know who's on the card? I know I posted it at PureEvilMMA.com.
Yeah, I think it's a very lucrative card for betting. Touching the Conor versus Cowboy. Plus Cowboy, it's like 400, which Conor fans, you never know. But
I think it's crazy.
for some reason
Took it out of context?
I think he dismissed the idea that he would do that. Because it is true that if the UFC thought doing that, Cowboy would go to jail.
Well, look at Stitch Duran and I were never friends, Donnie. Duran started saying stuff like that. That, you know, UFC was trying to fix
somehow
fights.
Somehow it got brought up that Cowboy was going to take 5 or something. But yeah, if they were ever caught doing that, UFC would lose their license to promote. I mean, it would be done.
So,
Cowboy
Donnie,
would go to jail for accepting the money. I mean, it's happened. It's happened in Russia, I believe. It's happened somewhere else.
It happened with Bangers Cunts. Went to court.
I mean, that's what it is.
And the crazy thing was that Bang was, bribed, but went against it. Instead of throwing the fight, he actually tried to win it. So, MMA.com, guys, we did release the first quarter UFC schedule that was released. Wrote it up.
I think it's a good card, to be honest with you, man. You got opening it up with Justin Ledet versus Kamur. Kamur, he's going to be making his UFC debut. JJ Almanzo, both are off pretty good in the Dobson ones, but
Still,
I think JJ Aldrich. I'll be honest with you, I'm right there right now.
Little
Aldrich
cookie.
At even money, I think JJ Aldrich versus Bean Almanzo.
This is coming from somebody.
Brian Keller versus
Like Donnie has a lot of. What would you say? You're probably about. 70% correct picks in 2019?
Yeah, I think it was like 69.5 or something like that.
Oh, you get decimals now, huh?
Yeah, I think I was right at like 69.5 on my
Wait, guys, I'm like
my prediction league. I won my
69.643.
prediction league and all that. So yeah, I've done pretty good. But yeah, I would say JJ Aldrich as a right at even money. I think she's actually a pretty good bet. To be honest with you, I really don't bet too much women's MMA, but I
Yeah.
think JJ Aldrich's gonna sit on Nazo. We got Brian Kelleher versus Osborne. I wouldn't touch that. Tim Elliott versus Askarov.
Oh, yeah.
Askarov, we last seen Askarov. He fought down in Mexico City against Brandon Moreno, and I thought Brandon Moreno won that fight.
That's
But
Bilal Muhammad's boy, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, Askarov, he's another Russian, and he's another. I mean, if you look at Askarov, if you just glance at the screen, the way he fights, and his whole demeanor and everything, actually mistake him for Khabib. Like, he looks almost just like Khabib from behind.
There's a lot of fighters that look like Khabib. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, but dude, this dude is from Dagestan. He actually resembles Khabib, like, from behind. I mean, like, you could literally, like, you could actually, like...
There's some shit going down in Dagestan, man, that we don't know about.
That's what I'm talking about, man. And the thing is that Tim Elliott...
They all got a Aunt Betty or something.
Tim
Come
Elliott
on.
got submitted in his last fight.
Whoa,
And,
say that again? Tim Elliott got submitted by... Really?
Yeah, dude. It's...
Wow.
Stevenson Figueiredo is fighting for down in UFC Norfolk, I think it's supposed to be where I live, a city over from me where I went to college, on my old campus. Stevenson Figueiredo is supposed to be fighting Joseph Benavidez for the vacant flyweight belt.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So Stevenson Figueiredo and Tim Elliott's last fight, he submitted Tim Elliott. I'll be honest with you, I think Askarov is a decent bet at even money as well. And then this is a great fight,
Been hearing about him for years too. Everyone's been raving about him. Yeah.
Great fight. Sadiq Youssef versus Andre Fili.
This is all at UFC 246, January 18th.
This is all on UFC 246.
This is a straight
the
card.
Next fight is Sadiq Youssef versus Andre Fili. That's a great fight.
Also, guys.
Alexei Oleinik versus Maurice Green.
Oh, wow.
Maurice Green is the one on cuff, smoking the Newport.
Yeah.
Shit outside and getting drunk and all that.
He ended up losing in the last. Yeah, he's actually a fan of, or not a fan of, but a follower of Pure Evil MMA, I should say.
Yeah, he's cool, man. He's from my hometown. Norfolk,
He's
Virginia.
cool, but he needs to be more self-disciplined.
He lives in Minnesota now, but
he needs to be more self-disciplined.
Alexei Oleinik, I know he's had a
tough
stretch
fight,
of fights,
man.
you know, he's had a tough stretch against
Well, Donnie, I would pick Alexei in that fight. What would you think?
Me too.
Yeah.
The thing is, I've already bet Alexei Oleinik at plus 105. He's a plus 105
Oh, you plugged it.
underdog.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Maurice Green, he just lost his last fight. And the thing is that it's kind of weird because he lost his last fight to a lower ranked guy, but now he's getting a higher ranked guy coming off a loss in Alexei Oleinik. So this is actually a good opportunity.
Well, that's
for
the
Maurice
thing,
Green,
though, Donnie, because the UFC brass knows the potential in him, but like I just said, it comes down to self-discipline with him. It really does.
Yeah, but personally, I'll be honest with you, Maurice Green, I personally don't see him. I don't think he's that dangerous on the feet for a heavyweight, and I think Alexei Oleinik can eat his shots and get in on him, and I think he submits Maurice Green, to be honest with you. So I actually so far on this card, I like Alexei Oleinik at plus 105. I like Askarov against Elliott at minus 115. And I like JJ Aldrich at minus 115. So it's a slight lean to JJ Aldrich against Mazzo.
But now I can kind of see. I can kind of see why fans were like expecting more for a Conor McGregor card. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, there's some good fights coming up. I mean, you got Macy Barber. She's like a minus 1,000.
Oh, she's going up against Roxy, right? It's her versus Roxy?
Macy Barber is like a minus 1,000 favorite against Roxanne Modafferi.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Damn.
I see a lot of people wanting Macy to lose, and
Well, yeah,
I think Macy's the real deal, man. I think she's. I'm not gonna say a prediction because I have too many friends that like Roxanne.
Well, I agree with you, man. I see Macy.
They'll give me a 24-hour mute on Twitter.
24-hour mute. Yes.
And then next up, you have Grant Dawson versus Chaz Skelly.
Oh, our
Skelly's
boy
a cool
Chaz,
dude.
man. He's been on Pure Evil MMA 3-4 times now.
He's a
After
cool
every
dude,
fight
man.
he's
But
had.
Grant Dawson's a good prospect. He trains. He was in the corner of what's your boy that just fought down in Brazil against damn it, you just talked about him earlier. You said you were standing outside with them. One that trains in
Joseph
Kansas City.
Benavidez. Joseph
Megan
Benavidez?
Anderson?
Joseph Benavidez?
No, the one that trains in Kansas City with Megan Anderson. He trains Megan Anderson. You were talking about how you were standing outside with them. He just fought down in Brazil.
Oh, James Krause?
He got a knockout win.
James Krause. James Krause?
James Krause, there you go. I lost my train of thought for a second.
And I was
James
thinking
Krause
Megan O'Leary.
trained Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson's like his protege. And Grant Dawson was actually in James Krause's corner when he knocked out Sergio Moraes down in Brazil. But Grant Dawson is a minus 200 favorite against Chaz Skelly. I'll be
Wow.
honest, man,
Well, Chaz is coming off an injury, I think, right? In his last fight?
what's that?
I think Chaz is coming off a very controversial loss in his last fight and an injury.
No, Chaz Skelly won his last fight, but before that it was a controversial loss against Bobby Mopnet. It was a controversial submission. Like the ref thought he was out when he wasn't out.
That's
it was
right.
like a dark
That's right.
choke.
Yeah,
It was a
he
dark
came on
choke
the
against Bobby
podcast.
Mopnet.
He came on here on this podcast and was going crazy about it. Like he went in on it. I'll insert a clip for you
It was
guys.
actually pretty cool. He got caught in a submission. I think he got caught in a submission in his last fight, and he did like a front flip to get out of it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
It was actually pretty cool. Who did
He's
he
good
fight in
people.
his last fight? It was a decent fighter he fought. I think it was Jordan Griffin.
Oh, Jordan Griffin's also been out here on this podcast.
Yeah, but Jordan, I think he caught him in like a front choke or something, and Chaz Skelly did a front
That's
flip
right.
to get out of it.
That's
pretty
right.
cool.
It was those two going up against each
I'll
other.
be honest with you, I think Grant Dawson's going to win that one. Grant Dawson, he's the one that he fought Mike Trezano in his last fight.
Mike Trezano, he's been on this podcast as well. The Lone Wolf, bro.
Yeah, he gave Mike Trezano his first loss. He submitted Mike Trezano.
Shout out New York. What's his gym? He trains over with.
I like Skelly a lot. Like Dan and Shaq at BestFightPicks.com. They have a podcast called.
He trains at Tiger Schulman's.
And,
He trains at Tiger
what's that?
Schulman's. He trains at Tiger Schulman's with Shane Burgos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Jimmy Rivera.
But yeah, they've had Chaz Skelly on. He's a really cool dude. He likes to bet a lot too. And,
All those guys
I
are
think
going to
he's
be on
have
UFC
I think
246?
he's a tough one right now.
Donnie,
So,
all
yeah.
those guys are on UFC 246?
Yeah.
Oh, guys, for those of you guys listening, we're going to reach out to every single one of them that have been on here before and talk to them. Because
Yeah.
I have their...
And then the next fight is Alexa Grasso versus Claudia Gadelha.
I'm nervous about that,
Yeah.
Donnie. I had to bite my lip right there. Claudia is in
Yeah.
such a tough position right now, where she needs
Yeah,
a
man.
win so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, she was actually a bigger favorite, but now it looks like a lot of money's come in on Alexa Grasso, and now I think Claudia opened up as like a. Let's see what she opened up as. She opened up as a minus 190 favorite, and up until even a couple days ago, she was a minus 140 favorite. But now it's right around the pick'em with a slight lean to Claudia Gadelha.
Well,
That's a
here's the
tough fight.
thing.
That's a tough fight. I mean, Claudia Gadelha, this will be her second camp in New Jersey with Mark Henry.
It's been a lot of changes for her, yeah.
Yeah, she was bouncing all over the place, man. I mean, I'm not going to make any accusations, but when things started going downhill for a lot of guys and gals down at Nova União down in Brazil. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. She was messing with, a little bit busy with Brian Ortega.
Hey, whoa, Donnie. Don't gotta get me jealous already in 2020, bro. Bro, my first emotion in 2020 is jealousy now. Now I'm jealous of Brian Ortega.
Okay, but I know, but I think Claudia Gadelha had a choice.
Yeah.
I know when she came out and said that she wanted Brian Ortega to have her babies and all that shit. Well, I think she had to make a choice because her career was faltering. She was a minus 400 favorite when she lost to Nina Ansaroff.
Claudia
A lot
Gadelha had a choice.
of people viewed that as a big upset, but now I think we just realize how good Nina Ansaroff is.
Claudia Gadelha. 10 weeks ago, Claudia Gadelha had a choice. 10 weeks ago, Claudia Gadelha had a choice. That is great. That is great. That's so
This
good.
next fight is really good, man. But can't bet it because he's too big of a favorite. But Nasrat Haqparast.
Well, wait. Let me just say this really quick, Donnie. Between her and Joanna, between Claudia and Joanna, obviously Joanna going to get the title shot again. She doesn't have much to lose if she loses. But Claudia, she's sinking lower and lower, but she's still up there. But there's a lot of people on Twitter and social media saying this is just the females catching up. I got to disagree. I think there's just a lot going on in Claudia's life that she just needs to come back together.
I think it was a good move in New Jersey with
Opening up her own gym, yeah.
She had started to gas and stuff in the fight. In the last fight,
Well,
she...
the Andrade fight was a little strange.
Oh, she got ass beat against Andrade. And she was like a minus 265 favorite, or it opened up at like a minus
Claudia
250
looked weird there.
Andrade picked her ass up and slammed her, but then she fought Carla Esparza, and she was like a minus 500 favorite, and that was a close-ass fight. Claudia barely scraped a decision, but a lot of people thought Carla Esparza won, and I think Esparza had...
That should have been a gimme.
Well, I think Carla Esparza had accused Claudia Gadelha of greasing.
Wait, say that again? She had what?
What's that?
Say that one more time?
I said Carla Esparza had accused Claudia Gadelha of greasing. You hear me?
No, yeah, I heard you, but come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm just telling you what Carla Esparza, like, it was a close fight, and some people thought Carla Esparza won the fight, but, like I said, Carla Esparza,
I don't know. I'm kind of biased there. I'm kind of biased there because I love Claudia. So.
Me too, man. She's fucking hot, too.
She's the Gustafson.
A lot of people view that as a big upset because Claudia was like a minus 400 favorite against Nina. But I think we all just got figured out how good Nina was. Like,
yeah,
really
I agree, man. I totally agree. Because I didn't realize how good she was. Yeah.
Yeah, her kickboxing is crisp, and her takedown defense has improved a lot. I mean, a lot of people thought, and I still believe Tatiana Suarez is the future champion, and it was looking
100.
like Tatiana Suarez was going to get the next title shot. But I think a lot of people, when she fought Nina Ansaroff, especially that third round, Tatiana was able to get the win, 29-28 on all scorecards, and she obviously won the first two rounds, but she got kind of tired in the third round. I think she said she injured her neck, but Nina Ansaroff kind of put it on Tatiana in that third round.
Nah, Tatiana. Yeah.
Yeah, but then Claudia fought Randa Marcos. I mean, a lot of people said it was a boring fight, but it was the first fight in a long time where Claudia Gadelha didn't seem to gas. And she fought a smart fight, and she easily beat Randa Marcos. I know a lot of people who bet on Randa Marcos, and I didn't think it was too smart of an idea, but because they fight kind of similar. I just see Claudia Gadelha as just overall better everywhere. But yeah, and so this is a big fight for Claudia Gadelha. I mean, if she wants any chances of getting back in the title picture, I mean, it's a big fight for her. I mean, you got Rose, who's probably going to be coming back into the picture. So you have Joanna,
which I'm excited for. Rose come back, because that last fight that she had where she lost her title was, even Claudia brought it up that move was pretty dangerous. I mean, throwing Rose on her neck, basically. It's
I held
some
my breath when she
schoolyard.
first landed, and that shit looked bad, dude. Like, it's crazy that she came out of it like,
She was
I
lucky.
don't know, like,
She was
she
lucky.
was fine, but I don't know, man. It was pretty scary looking, to be honest with you.
So Donnie, really quick, just to end this off here for everybody.
And then the last three fights on UFC 246, actually, yeah, Nasrat Haqparast, he's a really good prospect, man. He's really, really good. Fighting Drew Dober.
Oh wow.
Haqparast is the one that looks like Kelvin Gastelum's twin.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And then we have Holly
Mom's
Holm
got some
fighting Raquel
explaining to do.
Pennington. What's that?
Mom's got some explaining to do for Kelvin.
Right?
Yeah.
No shit, right? And then Holly Holm fights Raquel Pennington.
Whoa,
And then
that's
the
all the
co-main
way
event-
down at the bottom?
No, they're the third fight from the top.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so Holly Holm, they're like the curtain jerkers for the co-main event. Holly
Okay.
Holm fights Rocky, and then Anthony Pettis fights Diego Ferreira. Man, Diego Ferreira has looked so good, man. Especially ever since he moved down there to Texas under man, what the hell? Man, let's see what the fuck, man. I don't know what the hell.
Well, a plug.
But
My co-host James McSweeney just opened up his gym out in I think it's Plano, Texas. I believe opening up this week. Brand new gym, all new facility. But yeah, UFC 246, not that bad, but I would expect a little bit more to kick off the year. Especially the last couple of years, we had Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit. Those cards were stacked. Last year we had Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. That card was pretty decent, and you would expect the Conor McGregor card to be loaded. But it's pretty decent for the diehards, but expecting a little bit more.
ever since ever since Diego Ferreira moved down to Fortis in the May, dude, he looked so good in his
Fortis,
last fight.
yes. Fortis,
And, like,
Fortis, right?
He was Fortis in the May. He was
Fortis.
a big underdog. He was like a minus 385 underdog against the last time we saw Diego Ferreira was against Mairbek Taisumov. And Taisumov was a huge favorite. He had in like 5 or 6 years. And Diego Ferreira, they fought on the UFC 242, the Khabib versus Poirier card. And out in Dubai or wherever the hell it was at.
Yeah, I interviewed Dustin's coach. I believe that was in Dubai. I think you're right?
Something like that. It was somewhere out there. UAE.
Shout out to
I
Coach
can't-
Phil Daru.
It was just one of those. Yeah, he fought Mairbek Taisumov, and that was like a great performance. And now it looks like Anthony Pettis is getting no respect, man, from the bookies because Anthony Pettis is a pseudo.
Man, what a year Pettis had, knocking out Wonder Boy with the Superman punch in 2019. Remember that?
Thing is, man, every time Anthony Pettis was taking he fought like the elite fighters.
It's hot and
he's
cold,
tripping,
hot and cold.
falling, but every time he's fought in these kind of spots right here, he's had big
shows
fights,
up.
big finishes and shit, man. So I think there's a little bit of value on Anthony Pettis at plus 200, man.
So Donnie,
And
I
then,
just want to
obviously, the main event is Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone, and Conor McGregor.
ask you, what do you think about that fight? What do you think about that main
Conor
event?
McGregor opened as a minus 190 favorite, and he's already been bet up to a minus 320 favorite. If Donald Cerrone hits like plus 350 or above, I'll bet Donald Cerrone. I think Donald Cerrone has more weight to win, but I'm picking Conor McGregor to win by first round knockout.
Has it kicked
I don't
in?
think-
Has it kicked in for you yet? Like, does it feel real yet? Are you excited yet? Because it's not for me. It hasn't kicked in
No,
yet.
not really, to be honest with you, because I guess because we haven't got any press conferences or anything like that.
And they're not doing it, right? They're not doing it
Not
until
until fight week. They're doing one fight week.
weird. What does that tell you though? It tells you that Conor McGregor seems more focused, right? I mean, he was showing up to press conferences drunk off his ass, promoting whiskey.
Dana White was asked this question, and he said, "No, it's not that Conor doesn't want media obligations. He would have come if we would have asked him to." I think what it tells you is that Dana White in the UFC doesn't want him being asked tough questions.
Well, I don't agree with that. I just feel like Conor's focused at this point, and I feel like for so long he turned into the guy that people wanted to tune in, not mostly for his fights, but to see what he was going to say at the press conferences, which I'm guilty of right now. Like, I want that. You know, I want to watch a press conference.
I wonder if he's even in the U.S. I mean, I don't know how he's done that. I know, like, back in the day, he was doing, like, his last six weeks in Vegas.
There's a lot of preparation that goes into the shit talking, too, that people forget. That's not just off the top of his head all the time.
Right. Well, yeah, they're not going to do a press conference to the beginning of the week. But how I break down this fight is that Cowboy Cerrone, if he throws one right hand, just one right hand, he's going to get knocked out. Because the thing is that Conor is so good at hand fighting with guys. And what he does is he traps that lead hand on orthodox fighters. He traps that lead hand. I mean, in a way, he had a lot of...
You heard Eddie Alvarez talk about this exact thing.
But he traps that lead hand on guys. Their jabbing hand. And Cowboys actually developed a pretty good jab. But the thing is that, no, I don't think I've analyzed a better fighter in all of MMA history that I've ever analyzed that has a better pull counter left hand than Conor McGregor.
Thank you. There's so many... Donnie, there's so many people that just love to rag on Conor. They don't give him the respect he really does deserve. Take away everything that happens outside the cage. Take away all the shit talking. Look at him as a fighter and tell me you're not impressed.
No, yeah, for sure. But the problem is that, like, it's hard to gauge from the Khabib fight because the thing is that it's so hard to bring your feet with you when you punch. It's hard to sit down on your punches against Khabib because he's riding on your legs. But
what are you gauging there, though? You're gauging Conor against other people who lost to Khabib. There's no one that beat Khabib.
The thing is, like, I'm just saying from, like, a pure technical standpoint. Like, Conor, like, if you watch him back in the day, like, he was so, like, when he got in the octagon, you could just feel it. Like, he was playing touch butt in the park with that fucking coach. And that coach, to me, was, like, vital in his life. Like, that movement
Ido
coach.
Portal?
Yeah, but he was like, that movement coach, to me, was pretty vital to Conor. But, like,
Thank you.
Conor got in the octagon,
I'm happy you said that, too.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, these fights, like, think about how much pressure was on Conor to perform, and he gets in the octagon, and he's so fucking loose. Like, look at him in the Eddie Alvarez fight, and look at him in
He looks great
fight. He is so fucking loose, and when he comes out, he's like, it's almost like he's floating on a cloud. You know what I'm saying? Like, the way he moves, his movement is just so beautiful. But then, ever since that boxing match, even when I see him, like, I've seen little sparring videos, his movement seems much more.
He becomes
like
more flat-footed, right?
Exactly, a lot more flat-footed, a lot more plodding. And so, I still think if Cowboy just throws one right hand, he's going to get knocked out because Conor is going to trap his lead hand, and he's going to force Cowboy to throw a right hand, and Conor's going to see the right hand coming from a mile away, and he's going to counter him with a huge left hand and probably put him down.
And that's what Eddie Alvarez was saying. He was like, I've never seen a fighter so accurate like I saw with Conor.
That's the thing. Like, people don't know if Conor's power translates to 170. But the thing is, he weighed 168 versus Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz has one of the most legendary chins in all of UFC history. Hell, in MMA history, has a legendary chin. He dropped him, like, what, 3 times in that second fight?
Yeah, and you know what? Also, Donnie...
I'm sorry. If he lands that same shot on Cowboy Cerrone is going down. You cannot say... I mean, Cowboy has a good chin, but he does not have the chin Nate Diaz had.
You know what else, Donnie? In that first fight with him and Nate, people forget. Conor had Nate busted up, bleeding. So Conor started putting it all on
Yeah.
the fact that he thought he could get the ref to call the fight from a cut from Nate because he was so bloody,
Well,
and he
even
gassed
that,
himself
even
out.
like that, like every single fight he did it, other than he went to the second round with Chad Bendez, but nobody's been able to take his Joe Rogan famously said it, when he said it later on after the Diaz fight, he said that left hand shot. It just seems like one of those shots. He just can't believe how hard he can hit you with that left hand when he was fighting Eddie Alvarez. He's like, and other coaches have called it like the kiss of death or a touch of death or whatever. And the thing is that if he hits, I think if he catches Cowboy with the same shots he was getting Nate Diaz with, that puts Cowboy away. Thing is though, you saw when he dropped Nate Diaz, Conor didn't follow Nate Diaz to the ground. He followed Eddie Alvarez to the ground. He didn't follow Nate Diaz to the ground because Nate Diaz's jiu-jitsu is so good.
Donnie, I'm getting excited now. Now I'm starting to feel.
But imagine if Conor drops Cowboy Cerrone, but doesn't put him out. Did he follow him to the ground? Because you watch Cowboy.
Oh yeah,
versus
then
Rich
you go back to
Franklin.
watch what happened to Mike Perry when he did that.
Yeah.
Go see what happened to Mike Perry.
Exactly.
Go see.
He
Check that
submitted
out.
pretty much everyone. He submitted Charles Oliveira, DuBronx. Charles DuBronx Oliveira has the most submissions in UFC history. On paper, he's the greatest submission artist the UFC's ever seen. Cowboy submitted him. He submitted Barboza. He submitted Mike Perry. And the thing is that I think what Cowboy would be very smart to do is that he should immediately, as soon as the fight starts, he should get in on Conor McGregor in the clinch.
Is he though?
The
He's
thing
a
is,
slow starter most of the time.
I know he is. And the thing is, you have a guy who's notorious for slow starts and probably the fastest starter in UFC history. That's what I was getting to about the first Nate fight. So many guys were dropping like twice left hand, and I think he just, I think he was fighting heavier than he's used to. It looks like he's built a lot of muscle for this fight. It looks huge, man. I don't know if that's going to help with cardio, but the thing is that to me, history tells us he has 8 to 10 minutes to finish Cowboy. The longer this fight goes, the better it is for Cowboy. If I was Cowboy, I would immediately get him on the clinch. I think Cowboy's
hold on, Donnie. Donnie.
Mhm.
Because let's not forget what Conor learned after the first Nate fight. Because Conor was losing, the third round? Came back to win the fourth and fifth of the second fight.
No, I know. Well, I know, but I'm just saying, he doesn't have a finish.
He has a better shot.
So
Yeah,
I'm
I see. I know.
He can't win a decision.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that history tells us that he's most likely, his best chance of winning is in that first 8 to 10 minutes, because he doesn't have a finish past the second round in his entire
No one's going to deny that. Yeah, 100.
So I just think that, Cowboy, I think Cowboy's 6'1", and Conor's 5'9", and so I don't think anyone can argue that Cowboy's Muay Thai is much better.
Well, according to the UFC.
He can he can put his weight on Conor, and the thing is, to me, he just needs to be smart. Cowboy is notorious for not being smart in these big fights. This is the truth. He chokes in these big fights, and he's never fought very smart in these big fights.
That's why I said this was a smarter fight for Conor to take against
Conor
Cowboy
actually
than
has
Justin.
reach advantage in this fight. But to me, if I was Cowboy, I would immediately get in on Conor and push him back against the fence, get him into the clinch, get heavy on him, put
Connor's
his weight
not
against
Rick
him.
Story either.
Just make him carry his weight. And I know Conor has great takedown defense. I know his takedown defense is better than people give him credit for.
Thank you.
But Cowboy does have a sneaky double leg. He's taken down pretty much everybody that he's trying to take down, including Tony Ferguson.
That's the thing that interests me, though, Donnie. Is Cowboy going to imply his game, or is he going to be second-guessing himself? That's what I'm excited to see.
Yeah. But even if he doesn't get the takedown, just the threat of the takedown could just put something in the back of Cowboy or Conor's mind. At least make him think about it. But I think Cowboy has more ways to win, but I still think Conor gets the first round knockout. I think he traps that lead
I
in.
see it too.
Cowboy telegraphs the right I think Cowboy telegraphs the right hand, and Conor sits him down. But what would be most interesting is if he does drop Cowboy in the first round, whether he decides to fall him to the ground or not. Like, that's what, if he isn't able to put him out, but he just drops him, I mean, it's intriguing to me.
Donnie, it's going
we
down.
We kind of know Conor's game plan. Like, we wonder if he's going to be the same Conor or not. But I'm intrigued.
I'm feeling like it's going to be the same Conor. We're going to see old school Conor. Even his manager, what the hell is his name? Aziz? What the hell is his name? Hatar?
What the hell is his name? I know his name, but I can't think of it.
Aziz Hatar? Oh, what the hell is his name? I can't.
Adi Hatar.
Adi Hatar. Okay, so he was saying, I see the fire back in Conor. We'll see what happens, because like we were talking about earlier in the podcast with Eddie Monteverdi, of course they're going to represent their fighters. So with that being said, guys, let us know what you think.
Nobody be dumb enough to bet Conor at minus 320, though. That's where he's currently at. Do not bet Conor at minus 320. Just don't do it.
Let us
If you're
know.
going to bet Conor, bet him by knockout. That's just basically his only chance of winning.
Yeah,
Just bet him by knockout.
I want to see the people betting Conor by submission win. Yeah. Come on.
That would be some crazy shit.
Well,
That's probably like a,
People do it, though. That's the craziest part. People do it. Go to Tapology.
I'd do like a plus 20,000 probably. It's probably $5 max limit on it.
Let's do a bet.
Plus 20,000.
Let's do a bet. I guarantee at least 10% of people pick Conor McGregor to win by submission against Cowboy on Tapology come fight night.
Imagine if he drops Cowboy and he rains down punches on him on top and Cowboy taps strikes. That'd be some crazy shit if Conor technically got a submission.
Yo, I'm just excited more now. I'm more excited now than I was before this podcast, just hearing us get into it. And that's what I feel like has been missing.
The thing is, I'm so intrigued to see where Cowboy, like, I want to see which Cowboy comes out. Like, if it's the dumb one that just sits there. I mean, because the thing is that Cowboy is an elite striker. We forget that. People forget that and think, the Cowboy has...
Gonna be an interesting fight.
His striking is just as diverse as Conor's is. I mean, his fucking high kicks, I mean, we've never seen... I mean, imagine seeing Conor get flatlined by a Cowboy high kick.
Well, just go back. Just go back to the infamous...
I think we can all argue that the only reason Conor hasn't been KO'd or TKO'd is because, like, let's see that first day fight. Conor would have been TKO'd by Nate, but he chose to shoot in and give up his neck. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Conor gave up his neck.
A lot of people would say that, yes. I'm one of them to say that, too.
If he wants to fight Masvidal, like people are saying that Conor would beat Masvidal, I'm sorry.
Oh, they're jumping the gun. Let's get past this fight first.
Conor would give Masvidal his neck, and Masvidal would give it back. Like, he would give it right back to him.
I don't know yet. I haven't started thinking about that yet.
Just imagine seeing Conor get flatlined by a head kick.
Conor can't afford... I want to end this podcast in a second, guys, but Conor cannot afford to lose this fight. He really can't. People are going to write him off.
No, and it's only...
And it really doesn't matter if people do write him off. He's still a millionaire. He still had an amazing career, but... And he's only lost... That would be the only third fight he's ever lost in the UFC.
I'll be honest with you. I still think it was a bad idea on Conor's part doing this at 170.
Oh, I thought that too at first, too. The fight at 170.
To me, you make Cowboy cut that extra 15 pounds. Cowboy's getting older now. Every time Cowboy cuts to 155, he looks fucking shitty. He talks all week how he's miserable as hell. And then when he's only happened to cut to 170, he talks all week how happy he is and how he's still able to have a beer and this shit.
Well, Donnie, no, don't Conor, do not have a beer. But here's the thing, Donnie.
No, Cowboy.
Oh, okay.
Fighting at 170, he's much more comfortable, obviously. And then when you see Cowboy during fight week, when he's cut to 155.
Donnie, here's the other thing I want to throw in there is that Cowboy has been more. He's been fighting a lot more than Conor has. Conor hasn't been in there in a very long time.
Yeah.
Going on 2 years now.
Conor has a hell of a chin, too, though, man, because that shot that dropped Conor against Khabib in that second round, he slept on Khabib's striking, and
exactly.
He thought it was a level change. He thought it was a level change, and
wasn't expecting that. Yeah,
that would have knocked out a lot of guys. And and Connor like immediately recovered from it. Like he
Element
went
of
to his
surprise for that,
foot
yeah.
and kind of walked backwards. And like to me, I mean, that showed Connor his chin right there. I mean, in those elbows he took his chest, and then Connor has a fucking chin, man.
So with that being said, guys, let us know what you think about it. Obviously, me and Donnie are going to get more and more into it. I'm excited now. Are you guys excited for this fight? Because I wasn't excited heading into this podcast. I'm definitely excited for this fight because there's so much to think about. There's so many unanswered questions. We don't know what Connor's going to show up. We don't know what Cowboy's going to show up. There's a lot to discuss, and we're going to be getting into it here at PureEvilMMA.com. We want to know what your picks are, so let us know at PureEvilMMA_ on Twitter, and also at Donnie's Twitter at DROCKETT6969. We want to wish you all a very happy New Year 2020.
Happy New Year.
Just don't forget, you are the grandfather that lived through the 20s. Let that sink in for a second. Donnie, before we end this, man, where can people find you on social media? Other than Twitter, obviously.
On Twitter at DRocket6969 and on Instagram at DRocket169. So DRocket69.
So, Donnie, last thing. What did you do tonight for New Year's before we end this?
Just got on and watched fighting.
Yeah, me too, man. I haven't gone to bed since... Okay, so I took a little nap last night. Woke up to cover the Risen event from, 2 a.m. till I think it ended at like 10:30 or something like that when I was finally done doing everything. And then I tried taking a little nap. It's hard to do once you get to noon. It's like, what's going on? Like, is this real? Can I sleep? Can I not sleep? And then all of a sudden people are texting me, what are you doing for New Year's, this and that? And it just gets to the point where it's just like, all right, I'm staying up. You get that second wind. And here I am.
Yep.
It's 3:11 in the morning. Me and Donnie, 3:11 in the morning doing a podcast. Donnie, great way to start 2020. I think this is a great conversation, a great podcast as well.
I can talk fighting all day, every day.
Because it makes us feel alive. And I think that's the most important part here, is that we wake up excited, and we got one hell of an exciting pay-per-view to look forward to in a couple of weeks here. Donnie, really quick, let me off to our listeners. UFC Fight Night, January 25th, main event. We got Curtis Blades versus JDS. That's going down. Then UFC 247, February 8th in the main event, John Jones versus Dominic Reyes. And then February 15th, UFC Fight Night main event, Corey Anderson versus Juan Blachowicz. And the last one I'll mention here, Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker, February 22nd. Oh, I lied. UFC 248, Robert Whittaker versus Jared Cannonier, going down March 7th. And am I going to dare say it? It's coming up, guys. Francis Ngannou versus Rosenstruck, going down March 8th. And then, Donnie, you know what's coming up next? April Fool's joke on everybody. The fight that we may not see. Khabib versus Tony Ferguson. The 5th time I've said it here on Pure Evil MMA. April 18th. That's right, people. It's going down in April. Is it an April Fool's joke? I guess we're going to have to wait months and months to see. So much for tuning into Pure Evil MMA. Check out all the latest MMA news at PureEvilMMA.com. We got you covered, and we got a lot of content going to be dropping this New Year's. A whole new revamping of Pure Evil MMA, and we're going to get into it with me and Donnie here as my right-hand man. Donnie, thank you so much for joining us here once again, man. I mean, you really are the, pretty much, you are the vice president of Pure Evil MMA. You've done more work in 2019 in the last, 2 months that you've been here than, anyone else here has really done. And I want to thank you so much for doing that.
No, man. Dude, I just want to say, man, please, I'm proud of you, man. I know you don't want to talk about it, but I'm proud of you, man. For real. You know.
Oh, and that reminds me.
Amazing accomplishment, man. I'm proud of you, dude. I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to call you a friend, man. I really am.
Jared Gordon, man. We're going to be meeting up with Jared Gordon. Today is my
4 years, man.
Anniversary of being clean and sober. And Jared Gordon just celebrated his anniversary as well. So I'll be traveling out there. We're going to be getting some lunch and meeting up with Sergio Da Silva, who was found innocent of robbing the bank with a little help from John Gotti Jr. So we'll be doing that.
Me and Jared, proud to call both of y'all my friends.
And Donnie, really quick, what is I know that we're holding everybody on here, but just 10 seconds. Have you talked to Jared? What's going on with Jared? Has he got anything going on here with a fight coming up?
No, man. Like,
No new news?
He had to have surgery, and they kind of messed up when they did. I texted with him today. We talked for a few minutes. Texting him the other day. We talked for a while, but
He's good people.
we texted back and forth a little bit, actually yesterday now, but just wish each other happy New Year's and stuff like that. But he had to have surgery when they messed up when they went in.
No.
And, they had to put a plate in his. They had to put a plate for his orbital fracture.
Oh,
And they messed up,
no.
and they had to put a tube in, and so he's still healing up from surgery. And then, but he's putting the miles in on the bike and running. He's going to be cutting down to 145s.
Oh, snap, man. We got one hell of a year coming up, man.
He's already had success in his career at 145, and he's pretty undersized at 155, so
I like
he's
it.
good, man. So
2020, there's so many things to get into, and I think this was the perfect way to start it off with a bang. Episode number 245 of Pure Evil MMA. I'm Evil Eddie, owner of PureEvilMMA.com. Make sure to follow me at PureEvilMMA_ and at Evil_Echo on Twitter, at EVIL_ECCO for all the third graders out there. That's Donnie Rocket. We're out, guys. Have a great night and Happy New Year. Here comes the intro.